7 goals, a midfield mauling, and an end of an era. Carlton destroyed Port Adelaide this afternoon under the roof at Marble, and in the process gave the fans one more glimpse of what the future may look like, with a lot of changes expected at the end of this season now Graham Wright has the reins. But one man in the headlines for Carlton and leaving Port was Ken Hinkley. This was a sad sinking of a 13-year-old tenure played out in front of a very minimal Marvel crowd. Carlton saw hope and heartbreak. Port didn't know. Marvel Stadium on a Saturday afternoon on a very cold Melbourne afternoon. For Carlton, this was a dead rummer like Port, and it didn't feel like one. Coming off a rough stretch of form, losing 7 of the last 8, Carlton fans desperately wanted joy and some reassurance that 2026 wasn't going to be under the same dark cloud. For Port Adelaide, this was the final away game of Hinkley's outing as a senior coach and Trevor Spoke's farewell tour. A chance to show some pride, some fight, and a glimpse of what Josh Carr will inherit. Instead, what followed was a blue bagger demolition job. Carlton obliterated Port out of the middle. Harry McKay reminded the league what he can do. And Sam Walsh, Mr. Finals, back from injury after round 13, was electric. And the scoreboard tells the tale. 118-64, maybe flat as Port in the end. But the story said something deeper. Let's look at that. Blues blitz quarter 1. The game really was over in the first 20 minutes. Carlton didn't just come out with intent. They looked to insult the intelligence of fans everywhere. They absolutely destroyed the midfield, and it was relentless. Hewett, Cripps, Walsh, Lord, winning clearances, but also bullying Port. By the 10-minute mark, they were 7-0 on clearances, and by the time the quarter siren hit, Carlton were leading by well over 5 goals. McKay opened his count with an absolute shark from the ruck. Evans, Moyer, Cripps and O'Keefe all piling on the misery. The Blues weren't just kicking goals, they were spreading them round. Multiple goal assists, looking as slick as that back-end form in 2023. And it will have had fans glimpsing of what might be next year. On the other side, Porch were witches' hats. Aaliyah limped off early and had with an ankle scare. Josh Shin, he was subbed out with an injury, and Hinkley's midfield couldn't win a thing. Bulk tried some brilliance. Butters was in and out, but it was one-way traffic. This was Carlton's highest first quarter for 2 years. The message was clear. This wasn't going to be a slog. This was going to be them riding off into the sunset with a statement. In quarter 2, Harry decided to grab this goal by the horns. And if it was about midfield domination in the first, this was the Harry show without his mate Charlie. The narrative was simple. Harry proved he can handle the responsibility of being the spearhead, and he answered them emphatically. By half-time, he had 4 goals, some good contested grabs, very good positioning. His goal kicking looked lit and barely looked like he'd broken a sweat. Midfield was continuously mauling Ports. Hewett was monstrous at the times, multiple score involvements and clearances. Walsh being that gut runner, that edge of the link-up play, and Cripps even had the luxury of floating forward and kicking 2 goals of his own. Meanwhile, Port couldn't get their hands on it, and they finished the half with just 3 centre clearances. For context, Carlton had 16, and this was just really strong. The big question mark we had in the preview was all the data was saying Carlton were going to win this one very comfortably. And what they did is they managed to score from turnover, both stoppage, and move it around. It was sad for Port because this was meant to be a farewell with dignity. This has started to become a slow march to humiliation. In quarter 3, they didn't really have the fireworks, but one thing the Blues have tried all year is to be able to slow the game down and conserve energy. And they did. They controlled every line. The defence at times was shaky, but towards the end of this, Cowan and Weitering really had got some really nice slingshot. Williams was really in everything. Walsh was racking them up and getting the metres gained. And when the opportunity came, McKay was spreading the backline. The Blues ball movement was really clear from repeat entries, static movement, and there was a clear movement through the gears in this game. Whitlock, for Port, though, he gave the fans some joy. He had 3 goals on the J, and he showed some real spark. Bogue, he's going to be sad that he won't be there, but he was arguably some of the best football by Port was through him. But they were gulfed, and by three-quarter time, the Blues led by 61, and the only question left was, will Carlton finish this game off with a bang or put their feet up? Quarter 4, consolation goals came for Port, and it was a bit of a junk time game. Carlton had really eased up at this point. They'd lost loads of concussion. Port kicked the last 3 goals, and the scoreboard was trimmed down to around 54 points. But make no mistake, this game wasn't close. It was a belt in disguise, slightly by some late goals, after Carlton had really put the cue in the rack. A lot will be talked about Port's fall-off, but like we said about Brisbane and like we've said about other teams this year, you've got to look at the teams that when they do it, and Carlton at the times punished Port when they had to. Literally, this quarter was a real sign of what we liked from the Blues. McKay got his 7th. Big noise, and it was a sad sight really to see this game. Hinkley doesn't deserve to go out like this because I think he's been a great servant of Port Adelaide Football Club. What next for Hinkley? Will he be joining his old mate Voss and the Boss in the box? We don't know, but time will tell. Let's deep dive. Why did Carlton dominate this game? Well, this game was won by Carlton's midfield dominance and an urge to get it into the uncontested. Carlton dominated this game 16-3 by half-time. Their full quarter set the tone. 30 points from clearances, 22 from contested possessions, plus 12 clearances, 8 inside 50s. Although they were without some key players like Horn Francis, Carlton, I think, really did this really well. The Cripps, Hewett, Walsh, Lord quad was fantastic, and this has got to be the blueprint for the Blues at its best. Win the ball at the source, surge it forward, get it outright, isolate your tall, and don't allow the opposition to reset. The other tactical note for the Blues was their forward connection. With no Kerner, they went into more high advantage areas, low, quick to advantage. Carlton really put the pressure on and made Port have to move. They looked for short handball chains. They looked to take the game on. This is where the Blues are very strong. They can take physicality and get it onto the outside. This was a big part of why Walsh was here. He forced them to move. But defensively, they forced them to wide. We said that they're a turnover team. They just scored 64 points, and a lot of them were junk time. Carlton really tapered them to where they wanted to do. This is a mirror for Port of their season. They've been too reliant on Rosie and Butters, and when they are beaten, they're not even getting it in there. The Blues have really shown the blueprint here, and although it was Port a weaker opposition, this is the benchmark for the Blues. Let's look at the teams and the players that stood out. 7 goals for McKay. He was really strong. He really led well, and he brought the ball to ground. Josh Hewett, I felt, was the perfect foil for Cripps and Walsh. This was a more conservative role for him, but he still ranked up the ball and still got the game moving on his terms. And Sam Walsh, 9 score involvements in his first game since round 13. His two-way running and his direct running and intuitive running and give and go was really a standout. Travis Bogue stood out for Port. He was really strong, took his goal well, showed why he's so respected. Zach Butters was tireless, but again, a little bit like Carlton, winning a lot of the ball, doesn't have much in front of him to really make hay. And Jack Whitlock, we were big fans of him in the draft. He really showed it. So where does this leave both sides going in for the rest of the year? The Blues simply relief and some vibes. And that can't be understated. The Blues can't go in just with depression sessions all year. McKay's confidence, a bit of what Walsh can do. And now next week, it's Essendon, and really just end the season well, get a bit of momentum, and then recess in the trade and draft period. For Port, a lot of work to do. And what will Carr do? He's inheriting a mess at the minute. This side structurally looks poor, depth-wise looks poor, and emotions are very poor. It's going to be sad to see Hinkley go, but now Carr's got a lot of work to do. This is as big a job than Dean Cox because they were in good vibes. Now Josh Carr's going to have to change the system, but also bring the vibes back. For Carlton, the win doesn't change the season's narrative. It's been poor, but it resets the tone. They've snapped a losing streak, they've found a bit of form, and hopefully they can build a little bit of belief ending 2025 going into 2026. Carlton, no doubt, with McKay and Kerno both fit, Walsh fit, they should be back in contention with some right acquisitions in the off-season. Port, now the change is inevitable. 13 years has brought highs and some lows, but 2025 has been brutal. Big losses, a failed system, and a side that needs a massive reset. Carl will take over, but he's got big shoes to fill, and it looks like a rebuild may be approaching. So Carlton managed to get the chocolates, a demolition that gives the Blues fans something to smile about towards the end of the season, and Port fans leaving a lot of questions. McKay stole the show. Sam Walsh reminded everyone why he's elite. George and Cripps proved they're dominant machines, but this time they got the ball moving forward. The second and third efforts were impeccable, and this is the benchmark for the Blues. For Port Adelaide, this means it's one more game before they farewell Hinkley back at the AO. Hopefully they can do something for him. This wasn't just a win, it was a reminder that Carlton have weapons, and when they do it right, they can compete. And for Port, well, there's lots of questions. Like and subscribe. See you next time. Pom out.